Today we're going to discuss a very special and unique topic, the secret of the most attractive and unforgettable women. You know that there are some women in life who, when they enter a room, everyone immediately notices them, or the people they interact with never forget them and constantly think about them. In addition, they are always at the forefront in many areas, whether in their professional lives, their relationships, or even in their social circles in general. However, the most important reason for their prominence is definitely not related to physical beauty or financial status. In fact, these women possess a very different kind of energy. They know their own worth very well, and we can clearly understand this from their every attitude, every word, or every decision they make. And most importantly, we don't need any extraordinary special talent to analyze the secret of these women in detail. It is enough to just apply the right practices in a disciplined manner. While watching this video, I'm going to ask you to do something. Write, "I know my worth" in the comments. Because writing this is not just a sentence, it's the first step in making a promise to yourself. When you start to remember your own worth, your posture will change, your energy will rise, and you will feel that silent transformation that no one else notices. Now, if you're ready, let's get started. 1. Learn to say no. Now, many women don't realize that saying no, when done correctly, can be a superpower, and therefore they don't use it. Why? For example, since childhood, adults have always advised you to be the sweet girl, to be compliant, and to try to make everyone happy in general. But you need to understand clearly that every time you say yes, you are actually putting your own life on the back burner and giving it away. And remember, a woman who truly knows her worth understands very clearly that her time and even her energy are limited. That's why she tries to make strategic choices. Saying no definitely does not mean being rude. On the contrary, it is a touchstone of the respect we show ourselves. Now, I agree with you. You may think that saying no is difficult, especially when you think you will disappoint the other person. But never forget that you are not responsible for their disappointment. So if someone loves and values you only because you say yes, then that is not a value given to you, but a value given in return for what they can get from you. I think you can see the subtle difference here. Real relationships and connections develop when your boundaries are respected. So people should learn how to treat you from what you teach them. Of course, when giving this answer, when saying no to someone, how and in what tone you say it is also very important. You definitely don't need to be aggressive or give long, detailed explanations. Simply saying, "No, I can't do it this time. Thank you very much," is actually enough. You don't have to give anyone a 10 to 15 minute long apology marathon or draw the lines clearly. You already know that the more you try to explain, the more defensive you appear. And generally, people who go on the defensive appear weaker in society. However, women who know their worth and value express themselves clearly and keep it short. Moreover, they definitely don't feel guilty about it. Now, here's the secret. At first, it may be difficult to say no a few times. You may feel a sudden pressure in your stomach. You may be curious about the other person's reaction to this situation, or you may think, "Should I have said no?" and want to back down. But think of it this way. It's like exercising your muscles regularly. Just like how squats are hard the first time you do them. But with each repetition, you get used to it and feel yourself getting stronger. Saying no is basically the same. It gets a little easier each time, and over time, it becomes a perfectly natural, normal reaction for you. Eventually, you realize that the things you said no to weren't important to you anyway. You can also think of it this way. A woman who doesn't know how to say no can't truly appreciate the value of her yes, because everyone knows she'll say yes. But when a selective woman who clearly sets her boundaries, says yes, that's what's truly golden, and you realize that even taking your time or energy becomes a privilege in such a situation. People begin to appreciate the value of your yes more. Thus, you become the CEO of your own life, rather than someone who automatically provides various services to many people. By the way, I know this is at least the second, maybe even the third video you've watched on my channel, and it really saddens me that you're still not subscribed, because seeing you here, moving forward with you on this journey, is very precious to me. When you subscribe, you'll be supporting me in the strongest way possible, and we'll never lose touch with each other. Also, if you click the new hype button on YouTube, it's incredibly helpful in getting the video to reach more people. Thank you so much in advance. 2. Know that you don't need other people's approval. I want to start by saying this about this point. If you constantly wait for others' approval, rest assured that your life is passing you by, and I mean this very sincerely. For example, if you wake up every morning and look in the mirror thinking, "How do I look today? What will people think? What will they say?" then essentially, others are significantly influencing your life and perhaps even controlling it. Because a woman who truly knows her worth acts based on her own identity. She definitely doesn't get happy from other people's applause, nor does she immediately retreat into her shell when criticism comes her way. Because she is already well aware of her own value, and approval from outside only adds extra bonus value to her. It never diminishes or increases the foundation of her life. Now, you know we live in the age of social media, and everyone is constantly performing in different places. For example, you share a photo, and your mood changes instantly based on the number of likes, right? This is completely normal, but it's also a very dangerous situation, because dopamine creates a habit, and thus, when the brain receives external approval, it starts to release reward chemicals. Of course, you'll get used to this situation and start wanting much more, but know this: you absolutely cannot win at this game because you'll never be satisfied. Of course, looking at it from another angle, approval addiction essentially has this problem. You lose your identity. You start acting based on what someone else thinks about you. Questions like, what will they say if I wear this outfit? Will my circle approve if I do this job now? Or what will my friends think if I get into this relationship? Begin to deeply permeate all areas of your life, and in such a situation, you essentially cease to be yourself. You become a different version of yourself that everyone else wants. But as I said, that's the problem. Even if they like that version, it's no longer you. Of course, I agree that it's not easy to stand on your own 2 feet, independent of others' approval, but it is possible. Every day, for example, make a small decision based solely on your own mind, without trying to please anyone else. I don't know, maybe it could be doing your hair differently, maybe it could be setting aside extra time for a hobby, or deciding not to go to a social event at the last minute. As you do these things, as I said, this muscle will strengthen over time, and one day you will look around and clearly realize that you no longer need anyone's approval. You don't wait for approval from anyone. Only your own approval is enough. And then you will understand more clearly that this is true freedom. 3. Clearly define your own boundaries. We have come to one of the most important and valuable points. Living without boundaries is like living in a house without a door. Anyone can come in whenever they want, take whatever they want, and behave however they want. You live constantly in defense mode. Of course, a woman who knows her worth sets her boundaries very clearly and never hesitates to protect them, because boundaries are not walls that protect you, they are lines that define you. Being able to say, this far is okay, but no further, shows what your worth is, and people respect that clarity. Of course, there's also this situation. Nowadays, most people think setting boundaries is being rude, but it's the opposite. Boundaries make relationships healthier. Think about it for a second. A friend constantly cancels plans at the last minute and you don't say anything. That person doesn't value your time because you don't. But one day, if you tell them, "Look, last-minute cancellations are a problem for me. If we have plans, I expect you to respect them." That's when real communication begins. Either they change their behavior or you remove that energy from your life. Either way, you win. Actually, you don't have to be harsh or aggressive to set boundaries. In fact, the strongest boundaries are expressed in a calm tone. Simple sentences like, "I won't do that," "That's not okay with me," "I'm not comfortable with that," are enough. No drama, no yelling, just clear communication. And don't feel the need to explain yourself after you've said it. You don't need to apologize for your boundaries. They are undoubtedly your rights. If the other person doesn't understand or respect them, that's their problem, not yours. In fact, here's the truth. Some people in life constantly test boundaries. Manipulative people, narcissists, energy vampires. They push your boundaries to see how flexible you are. If you allow them to cross your boundaries once, they see it as an invitation. But if you stand firm the first time, the message is clear. This woman is not easy. There's no game here. And you know what? These types of people look for easy targets. When you are clear, they move on. Your boundaries protect you. In addition, if you don't know your own boundaries, how will you teach them to others? Sit down with yourself first and think, what are my red lines? What behaviors will I not tolerate? What kind of treatment do I deserve? Answer these questions honestly. Maybe it's infidelity in relationships, maybe disrespect in your professional life, maybe one-sidedness in friendships. You need boundaries in every area. You can even write them down. When you are clear, there is no room for indecision. Finally, never forget this. Setting boundaries is not selfishness, it is self-respect. You are taking responsibility for your own quality of life. Managing other people's feelings is not your job. Protecting your own space is. Women who know their worth don't regret setting boundaries, because they know that these boundaries make them stronger, more respected, and yes, unforgettable. Set a small boundary today and feel the difference. 4. Don't forget to value your own time. My friend, I want to say this. Time is the only resource you cannot get back. For example, you can earn money again, you can repair relationships, but you can never get back the time that has passed. A woman who knows her worth knows that her time is golden and manages it accordingly. If you don't value your own time, why should others? Every time you say yes, you're actually giving away a piece of your time. The question is, does this person or situation deserve your most valuable resource? Most of the time the answer is no, but we give it anyway. That's where the problem starts. To give you an example, how many people use your time as if it were worthless? The friend who is late but doesn't even apologize. The acquaintance who spends hours on the phone recounting their drama but never asks about your life. The co-worker who constantly says 5 minutes but steals half an hour of your time. Of course, all of these people are disrespecting your time, and you're the one allowing it because you haven't set boundaries. You're giving your time away cheaply, and people notice. No one respects things that are worthless. It's a universal rule. Of course, there's also this. Now let's talk about practical ways to value your time. First, take control of your calendar. If you say, "Okay, I'll come, I'll do it, I'll be there," to every request that comes your way, then your life is being managed by others. Create blocks of time in your calendar that are reserved for yourself. Your morning routine, your workout time, your reading time, your hobbies. These are non-negotiable. Of course, for example, if someone asks you for something during these hours, you can say, "I'm busy at that time." You don't need to give details. Whether you're doing yoga or just sitting on the couch, it doesn't matter. It's your time, your decision. There's also this. Women who value their time know the difference between quality and quantity. It's much more valuable to spend a few hours a month with 2 close friends than to meet 5 superficial friends every day of the week. Learning something for half an hour is much more beneficial than scrolling through social media for hours. Choosing to be alone and investing in yourself is much smarter than wasting years in a toxic relationship. See, how you spend your time is much more important than how much time you spend. Looking at it from another angle, think about last week. Where did you spend your time? Now ask yourself honestly, what percentage of that was truly valuable to you? What percentage was to meet other people's expectations? What percentage was just killing time? If the majority falls into the last 2 categories, you need to change something. Because if this pace continues, years later, you will look back and say, "Where did my life go?" And the answer will be painful. It went to things you didn't value. 5. Stand your ground, but don't be arrogant. I want to start with this fact. There is a very fine line between knowing your worth and being arrogant, and most people can't see that line. Standing your ground means insisting on your own standards. Arrogance is seeing yourself as superior to others. Do you understand the difference? A woman who knows her worth knows her value without putting anyone else down. She says, "I deserve this," but she doesn't say, "You don't deserve this." This difference makes you a strong woman, not a toxic ego. And people sense this difference, believe me. Essentially, maintaining your stance means being steadfast in your principles. For example, if loyalty is non-negotiable for you in a relationship, you don't open it up for discussion. But this doesn't mean, "I'm perfect, you're lucky." It simply means, "This is my need, and there's no flexibility on this." That's the difference. A proud person constantly tries to prove themselves, to show their superiority. A woman with poise knows this silently and doesn't need to prove it. She shows her worth not by diminishing others, but by her own greatness. I also want to say that arrogance is actually a defense mechanism. People who are insecure deep down try to appear overly confident to the outside world. They constantly brag, constantly talk about themselves, constantly point out the mistakes of others. But pay attention. Are these people really comfortable? No, because they are under constant pressure to prove themselves. A woman who truly knows her worth is comfortable and at peace. She doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. She is at peace with herself, and this energy is evident in everything she does. The most explosive part of this is that it is possible to maintain your stance while also being humble. In fact, this combination is the biggest reason people want to be around you. You are successful, but you don't brag. You are beautiful, but you don't put others down. Of course, your standards are high, but you don't judge others. This is a sign of maturity. And mature women are always more attractive, more respectable, more memorable, because people don't feel small around them. They feel inspired. That's a huge difference. Let me ask you this. How do you feel when someone is more successful than you? If you feel threatened, it means your inner confidence isn't solid. But if you say, "Wow, that's great. How did you do it?" then you have real self-confidence. Arrogant people love competition and are bothered by the success of others. Women who know their worth believe in abundance. Someone else's success does not hinder your success. There is room for everyone. When you live with this mindset, you maintain your poise and become a beloved person. The bottom line, how you treat the people around you is the true indicator of who you are. How do you treat the waiter, the cleaner, the doorman? If you are only respectful to people who can benefit you, then you are arrogant. But if you treat everyone with the same respect, you know your true worth, because you prove your worth not by belittling others, but by who you are. And that is what makes you truly unforgettable. Maintain your stance, but don't be arrogant. Be strong, but be kind. That's where the balance lies. 6. Stop being easily accessible. I want to start with this harsh truth. Something that is constantly available is never seen as valuable. This is the most basic rule of economics, supply and demand. The more there is, the less valuable it is. If you are always there, always responding, always available, your value is decreasing. Of course, a woman who knows her worth manages her accessibility. This isn't playing games. It's prioritizing your own life. You have your own plans, your own work, your own world. And others can only enter that world when invited, not whenever they want. Now, let's look at messaging in more detail, for example. Do you have a habit of replying instantly when someone sends you a message? Do you reflexively look at your phone when it vibrates? You can be sure that this is one of the biggest traps of the modern age, because being constantly available sends the message that you don't have your own time. Someone sent you a message, you stopped what you were doing and replied. This means, my life is less important than your message. And the other person subconsciously registers this. But if 2 hours pass before you respond, that person knows you have your own life. Here's the truth. Not being easily reachable isn't playing games. It's actually being busy. You're pursuing your hobbies, focusing on your work, spending time with friends, reading books, exercising. Your life is full. That's why you don't check your phone every 5 minutes. Of course, this is a healthy lifestyle. But for someone who is glued to their phone, constantly on social media, checking every notification, life is empty. And emptiness creates worthlessness. If you have a full life, you are naturally not easily accessible. This is also very important in relationships. If a man can reach you whenever he wants, he has caught you. The chase is over, the excitement is over, the curiosity is over. But if you're sometimes busy, sometimes have plans, sometimes say, I'm busy this week, then your time becomes valuable. They have to make an effort to spend time with you. They have to make plans. And people make an effort for the things they value. They want what's valuable, not what's easy. That's a fundamental truth of human psychology. I also want to say that always being available makes people lazy. Knowing they can always find you, they don't value spending time with you. They think, he's always there anyway. But if you're not easily accessible, even having a coffee with you becomes a special occasion for them. They have to block out time, they have to make plans, they have to make an effort. And this process makes you much more valuable in their eyes. Simple, but effective. 7. Stop constantly talking about your past. My friend, let me say this first. Your past is your story, but you don't have to tell that story to everyone. A woman who knows her worth doesn't use her past as a weapon or sit every new person she meets in the therapist's chair, because sharing too much of your past leaves you vulnerable and gives people the opportunity to judge you. Of course, yes, everyone has a past. Yes, you may have gone through difficult things. But talking about them on the first date or at every opportunity diminishes your current value. People remember you for your current energy, not your past. Of course, there is also a situation where some people carry their past around like an ID card. They constantly say, I went through this, I went through that, that's why I am this way. This is victim psychology. Constantly talking about your past is like constantly picking at old wounds. It never heals. What's more, people start to pity you. They don't respect you. There's a huge difference between pity and respect. You don't want to be pitied, you want to be respected. So don't use your past as a source of drama. Use it as a source of strength, but quietly. In addition, people are not interested in your past. Really. Everyone has their own drama, their own trauma, their own story. While you talk for hours, they may just be listening politely. Maybe they are thinking about their own problems at that moment. Your past is something only a few people who are very close to you need to know. Serving up your past to random acquaintances, co-workers, or new flings diminishes your value. Because the mystery disappears, the depth disappears. Also, there's another benefit to not sharing your past. People judge you based on who you are now. They don't know your old relationships, your old mistakes, your old weaknesses. They know you as you are today, and that's a very powerful position. Because you've changed, you've grown, you're a different person now. But if you talk about your past, people form an old version of you in their minds and start seeing you through that lens. Oh, this girl dated losers. This girl had no money. This girl's family was toxic. That's when the labels stick, and they're very hard to shake off. Also, I should add that strategic silence is very powerful. Don't answer every question. Don't share every piece of information. When someone asks, "What did you do in the past? What did you experience?" Instead of telling a long story, you can say, "I had interesting experiences, things that made me who I am today." Short, mysterious, clear, without going into detail. Rest assured, people will be curious but won't find out. And curiosity creates attraction. But people who know everything get bored. Why would someone who reads all the pages of a book in the first 10 minutes continue? Bottom line, not talking about your past isn't denying it. It's just sharing it strategically. Of course, you can share it with people you truly trust, who value you, who are in your long-term life. But this should be a privilege, not standard procedure. Women who know their worth don't share their stories with everyone. They share selectively. And this selectivity makes them more mysterious, more valuable, more unforgettable. Don't dwell on your past either. Leave it behind, focus on the future, and let people get to know you for your current energy. 8. Try to invest in your character before your physical appearance. I want to start with this fact. Beauty is temporary, but character is permanent. This may sound like a cliché, but it doesn't change the truth. Look around you. How many beautiful women have you seen but got bored after talking to them for 5 minutes? How many were attractive at first but became repulsive over time? Now think about the opposite. How many women have you met who may not have caught your attention at first, but became fascinating as you talked to them? Women with strong character become more attractive over time. Those who only invest in their appearance fade over time. Do you see the difference? As many of us know, a woman who knows her worth spends her time reading books, learning new skills, and developing her mind, rather than spending hours in front of the mirror doing her makeup. That doesn't mean don't take care of yourself. Of course, be well-groomed, be healthy, feel good about yourself. But don't be obsessive. If your beauty has become your only value, that means your identity is built on a very fragile foundation. What will happen when you get older? What will happen if you have an accident? What will happen if someone more beautiful comes along? Character, however, carries you through any situation. A strong character never fades. For example, let me ask you this. What do you see on social media? Thousands of women look alike with the same filters, the same poses, the same makeup, like clones. But how many of them are truly interesting, or how many of them have the knowledge to strike up a deep conversation? How many of them have the strength to stand firm in a crisis? Unfortunately, very few, because everyone invests outwardly, not inwardly. Be different. Invest in your character. Be honest, principled, brave, kind, intelligent. These qualities will make you stand out from the crowd. And believe me, in the long run, these qualities win. In fact, there are practical ways to invest in your character. Develop a reading habit. Chat with different people, have new experiences, face difficulties head-on, learn from your mistakes, clarify your values, establish your principles. These are not easy, yes, much harder than putting on makeup or buying a new outfit, because this is an internal process. No one sees it, no one applauds it, but you know. And over time, this inner strength radiates outward. People sense your energy, your confidence, your depth. Ultimately, remember this: physical beauty gets you into a room, but character keeps you there. Maybe a man looks at your appearance when he first meets you. That's normal. But the reason he wants to stay with you will be your character. It's your character that gets you promoted at work, makes your friends value you, and earns you respect in your family, not your beauty. Life is a long marathon, and appearance is a temporary advantage. Character is the power that carries you to the end. You know which one to invest in now. Smart women invest in character, and they are the ones who are unforgettable. 9. Show more respect for your own body. Now, the critical point here is this: your body is your home, your temple, the only real property you have in this life. How you treat it is the clearest indicator of how you value yourself. A woman who knows her worth respects her body. This isn't just about dieting or exercising. Of course, it means seeing your body as a partner, not an object. You treat it well because it carries you, keeps you alive, and allows you to experience things. You don't feed it junk food. You don't deprive it of sleep. You don't crush it with stress, because you need it, and it deserves your good intentions. Now, there's also this situation. Most women are at war with their bodies. They constantly criticize it, constantly compare it, constantly try to change it. This weight has to go. This area needs to be firmer. That needs to be bigger. It's an exhausting cycle, and you can never win. Because standards are constantly changing, the media is constantly presenting a new ideal. But respecting your body means accepting it as it is and making it the best it can be. It's not about fighting, it's about working together. It's a "you carry me, I'll take good care of you" agreement. Rest assured, this change in mindset changes everything. I also want to mention that there are practical aspects to respecting your body. Eating quality food, exercising regularly, getting enough sleep, drinking water. These are basic, but most people neglect them. Why? Because they don't value themselves. They make time for others, but not for their own bodies. They skip breakfast, but make coffee for others. They stay up late listening to others' dramas, but sacrifice their own sleep. This is disrespectful to yourself, and your body feels it, gets tired, gets sick, and warns you. Furthermore, how you treat your body teaches others how to treat you. If you don't care about your own health, others won't care either. They'll say, "She doesn't take care of herself, why should I?" But if you exercise regularly, eat healthily, and make time for yourself, people will see this and respect you. The message, "This woman values herself, so I should value her too," gets across. Your relationship with yourself sets the template for your relationships with others. Don't forget that. Looking at it from another angle, respecting your body also means setting boundaries. If someone doesn't respect your sleep schedule, say no. Stop hanging out with toxic people who don't care about your health. Alcohol, cigarettes, bad habits. These are disrespectful to your body. You might say, "But everyone does it. It's for fun." Yes, but your body is your temple. No matter what others do to their bodies, maintain your own standards. This selectivity is a sign of self-respect. And one thing is certain, women who know their worth treat their bodies well. 10. Create quality alone time. Now here's the thing, my friend. A woman who is afraid of being alone can never know her own worth. Because, as you appreciate, it means she constantly defines herself by the presence of others. A woman who knows her worth sees solitude not as a punishment, but as a luxury. She can spend quality time alone, enjoy her own company, and find peace in silence. This is a sign of strength, because you don't need anyone. You are a complete person even without anyone else. People enrich your life, but you are whole even without them. When you grasp this mindset, everything changes. Looking at it from another angle, understand the difference between loneliness and being alone. Loneliness is being alone when you don't want to be. It is depressing, heavy, painful. But being alone is a conscious choice. It means, I don't want to talk to anyone today. I'm going to spend time with myself. This is empowering. Most people fear silence, their own thoughts. That's why they constantly seek noise. The TV is on, music is playing, the phone is always in hand, people are always around, because being alone with themselves scares them. But you be different. What I'm really asking is, what does quality alone time mean? It means being with yourself, without your phone, without TV, without distractions. Maybe you're drinking coffee and looking out the window. Maybe you're writing in your journal. Maybe you're going for a walk. Maybe you're just sitting and thinking. These are the times when you know yourself best. You hear your inner voice. You begin to understand what you want, what you don't want, where you're going, who you are. This voice is lost in the noise, but it is clearly heard in silence. There is also the fact that women who are constantly with people are usually running away from themselves. When one relationship ends, they immediately jump into a new one. They can't stay home alone. They constantly want to go out. They can't spend an evening without friends. Of course, this is dependency on others. And someone who is dependent can never be free. But when you learn to spend quality time alone, you become independent of anyone. You keep people around because you want to, not because you need to. This is a very powerful position. Of course, spending time alone also increases your creativity. Look at history. The greatest artists, writers, and thinkers have produced their best work during times of solitude. Because solitude creates depth. If you're constantly surrounded by noise, you stay on the surface. But in silence, you go deep, and that's where you find treasures. You develop your own ideas, create your own world, clarify your own identity, your own thoughts, not those of others. And this originality makes you unforgettable. The bottom line, a woman who can enjoy being alone will never stay in the wrong relationship, because solitude doesn't bother her. If she has to choose between a toxic relationship and being alone, she will comfortably choose solitude. But a woman who fears loneliness tolerates mistreatment. At least I'm not alone, she says. Do you see the difference? The woman who embraces solitude is free. The woman who fears solitude is a prisoner. Which one do you want to be? Give yourself at least 30 minutes of quality alone time every day. Phone-free, uninterrupted, just you. Over time, this habit will transform you, and you will see your value more clearly. After these 10 points I've tried to explain, I need to briefly say this. Being unforgettable is definitely not a secret. It is a choice that a person makes for themselves. With the small but effective decisions you make every day, the simple boundaries you set, and even the respect you show, you are definitely creating new value for yourself. And now, after all this, the real question I need to ask is, are you ready to do these things? Because the moment you recognize your value, everything around you will suddenly begin to change in a clear way. Remember, when you change, the world will inevitably change for you too. And that is essentially what makes you unforgettable and attractive. If this journey has inspired you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. because your transformation can be a beacon of hope, not only for you, but also for the women around you. Every like, every comment, every share helps another woman see this message.